I've become convinced that my current girlfriend may be experiencing delusions. What in the world should I do about it? I live in the rural part of the United States, in the woods, and a small home. I'm not too deep in the woods. There's a town just half a mile from my house, and the driveway to my house is essentially a straight drive to this town. This is going to be important later. This may seem insane, but I have been encountering a diseased deer within my woodland property. This deer has been alive for at least 3 months, and I've seen it 4 or 5 times. My girlfriend, however, claims to see it every day. Furthermore, she claims that this deer is an angel and that it whispers to her. At first, when she said these things, I assumed she was teasing me, as in the past I had suggested it may be a skinwalker or other mythical creature. However, she has quickly become obsessed with this creature. For example, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were eating dinner together at home. We were eating some cheap gas station hot dogs, as we were experiencing a major power outage, and most restaurants were closed, and most of our food was spoiling. She suddenly looked out the window at the forest and started saying something to the effect of, "I see it. I see the angel. It wants me to come close to it." She suddenly jumped up and ran outside. At this point, I am completely freaking out. One of the people closest to me in my life has just proclaimed a completely insane statement and ran outside into the freezing night. I quickly shoved on my shoes and coat and joined her outside. It must have taken me just a minute to get outside behind her, but she was already 30 feet away from me and into the forest. Keep in mind, she's barefoot and wearing long pants and a sweater. I catch up to her, and she's just staring into the forest. I asked her if she was okay, and she just laughed it off and said, "Oh, I thought I saw that deer outside again." About a minute later, we were both back inside. This incident has been rolling around in my head for a while. However, I could have shrugged it off as her just being slightly paranoid about her angel deer she keeps seeing, or once again her teasing me. But just 3 days ago, something happened that made me realize I cannot simply ignore her actions anymore. I wake up, for no apparent reason, at 2 o'clock in the morning. My bedside is empty and my curtains are undrawn. I'm tired, so I don't think anything of it, just shift around. The second I got comfy and convinced myself she was just in the bathroom, or taking a midnight walk, which we usually take together, I hear a loud scream outside. I jolt up and have the worst heart palpitation of my life. It's clearly my girlfriend screaming. I hop up and jolt outside and find my girlfriend is laying outside nearly naked, looking up at the sky, pointing with one hand saying, "He's back! He's back!" I'm freaking out now. I literally started crying. I don't know why. I just started crying. The sight of her just laying there screaming at nothing made me so worried for her. I brought her back in crying and was debating calling mental health services. I didn't want to just go back to sleep and risk her doing something to herself and getting back up. But she's never had any mental health issues before this. The worst I know of is that she used to have panic attacks and went through an emo phase in college. But after weaning off of caffeine, her panic attacks subsided. And besides the incident of her running outside that other night, she's never had any issues with mental health. So this is all a shock to me. The next morning, I asked her if she thought she needed therapy. She seemed confused about this. She said she was fine and was just stressed out about her future and her career. From that day on, she's never mentioned the deer angel again. Am I just being an overprotective boyfriend? If not, what steps should I take to ensure she's safe? This is a crazy story. If my girlfriend suddenly started saying that she was seeing some angel deer out in the forest, I would not hesitate to call mental health services of some kind to have her evaluated. I'm a big fan of Dungeons & Dragons, Lord of the Rings, and Game of Thrones. But ladies and gentlemen, angel deers are not a thing. There's no mythical creature in the woods that's going to help you with your future career and problems in your life. If someone's pointing up at the sky at 2 in the morning in the snow screaming about a deer, there is something wrong. I'm sure this man loves his girlfriend more than anyone else in this world. He makes it very clear that she is incredibly important to him. But this is an easy one. He absolutely needs to intervene and find some way of getting her help. This is not something you should take lightly. And the fact that this happened more than once and was a repeated incident at his house is a serious sign that something's up. This is not normal behavior. This is strange, scary behavior that isn't rooted in reality. Or there's another side of this. Maybe she saw an alien. Does this prove aliens exist? I don't know. You be the judge. All in all, this man is in a tough situation because this is absolutely going to be a determining factor of his relationship with his girlfriend. I asked to girl out and got rejected, but with a twist. Not sure if this counts as relationship advice, but I'm slightly confused. Anyways, I'd been talking with a girl for a few weeks and asked her out tonight, which she said no, which is absolutely fine. Take it on the chin, try not to make it awkward. I'd rather know than sit there with regret. About an hour later, she messaged me saying, "See, this is why I won't go out with you. You just brushed it off when I said no. If you had kicked up a bit more of a fuss after I said no, I might have said yes, but never mind, because now will never now. So anyways, I'm now very confused. Why would anyone want to be with someone if they got told no in the first place? Should I have made more of a fuss? I think I took the right action. Let me just say that the man in this story took absolutely the right action. The lady in this story is clearly just wanting to play games. Here's a little advice. If you want a man to be with you, say yes. But playing games and seeing if he's going to be loyal in some way, especially when he doesn't know you yet, is toxic. Imagine, if you will, that they actually get into a relationship. They fall in love, if you will, and then suddenly she starts to play the game of, oh, well, no, we're breaking up now. The reality of her playing games with this man and pushing him around just to see if he'll stick around with her is very high. This is beautiful foreshadowing of the bullet that he definitely dodged. And in this case, sometimes the bullet dodges you. The fact that she acted like this towards him after she rejected him is insane. This is not how guys work. If you're throwing down subtle hints, I can guarantee you we're going to miss it. We need blatantly obvious hints. And don't even call them hints, just call them direction. Tell us what you want, please. We will be loving and devoted towards you if you just tell us what you want. And I think almost anybody can understand that. But the lady in this story is clearly being really needy and is showing off a very toxic side of herself. In all honesty, she did him a favor. She's clearly just going to play games, and nobody needs that kind of drama. It's best just to move on and find a woman who's going to act like an adult, not like a child like this lady. I feel like I'm being taken advantage of in my marriage and family. My wife and I got married 6 years ago. She had 2 kids who were 9 and 10 years old when we got married, but they had been living with me since they were 3 and 4. Soon after our marriage, we had our daughter, and within a few months, my wife started having widespread health problems. She was diagnosed with a chronic condition that will probably never go away, and she will be uncomfortable for the rest of her life. That being said, it's not life-threatening, but she hasn't worked in 3 years. My stepkids are now 15 and 16. Their father has disappeared from their life when the pandemic started because he is way too deep into conspiracies, and the kids don't want to hear it anymore. He doesn't call or stop by to pick them up. The only thing they got from him on Christmas was a text message. Same thing for their birthdays. Now, I am not a wealthy man. In fact, I'm quite the opposite. I make omelets for a living, and I make pretty good money for my area, but now that prices are up and business has died down, I'm not earning as much, so money is tight once again. I have asked my wife to seek child support since my stepkid's dad is not involved in any way. I have asked her to file for disability as she seems to think she can't work with her medical issues. I've asked her to try and find some remote work part-time or sell some things on Craigslist, but here we are again with no money, bills to pay, and I'm starting to feel like my life purpose is to work and pay utilities. We never go anywhere or do anything. My wife and her kids watch TV all day and play games. I usually have to clean the house up when I get home from work. Beyond this, I feel no affection from anyone except my daughter. My wife doesn't voluntarily touch me anymore. I feel like I've been sucked into a situation that I can't escape without causing more problems for everyone. What do I even do? This is such a tricky situation. Having a chronic illness is no joke. There are people out there that live with conditions that are absolutely debilitating and prevent them from doing any type of work. It's a tough pill to swallow, but that is really some people's reality. I feel for the man in this story. He's had to burden the load of an entire family without his wife being able to work. I can see where he's coming from of not feeling valued or in any way loved for the effort he's putting in for his family. He obviously cares, but he doesn't feel like they care at all. His best course of action, in my opinion, is communication. He's got to sit down with his wife and tell him exactly how he feels, explain his insecurities, talk to her about how tight money is, and discuss the problems that he's clearly dealing with. Bottling it up and holding it in is not going to help. It's only going to allow these problems to keep going on. He can't possibly expect his wife to find any kind of middle ground with him if he doesn't articulate that. And it's hard enough that this chronic illness has disabled her, but maybe seeking child support from her kid's father and signing up for disability might be in her best interest. If anything, it could help their family get by and allow them to make ends meet in their life. Running out of money and being tight on a budget is no joke. It limits almost every aspect of your life, so I can understand where this guy's coming from. What would you do in this situation? It feels like my boyfriend is only with me for my dogs. I've been with my boyfriend for more than a year. We went out twice a week for about 3 months when we first started dating, but then things shut down. He had family problems, and then he ended up living with my family and I for 6 months. Since March of 2021, we've only gone out once. Every time I tell him I want to go out, all he wants to do is is either take the dogs for a walk or take the dogs for a ride. It's always about the dogs. I mean, who can blame them? They are adorable. Now, due to medical reasons, my boyfriend can't get vaccinated, and his doctor hasn't gotten back to him about getting a letter of exemption, so he can't actually go to a restaurant, a bar, or a theater. He can, however, go to parks, malls, arcades, and other places. He just won't go anywhere unless the dogs can come with him. I've about had enough. I'm jealous of my own dogs, and I hate that. Is there anything I can say to him? To answer that last question, yes, there is something you can say to him. You can tell him exactly how you feel. Let him know that you feel like your dogs are getting more attention than you. I understand that the pandemic has shut down so many things. A lot of bars and theaters and places of interest, especially like a restaurant, prime dating real estate. It's all shut down, and it makes it difficult for couples to stay connected. I feel for her in this situation, but at the same time, some honest and simple communication could really go a long way. All she really has to do in this situation is sit her boyfriend down and tell her exactly how she feels. Tell him that she feels like her dogs have a higher priority in his life than his own girlfriend. She needs to think of some activities that both of them can do so that they can both rekindle that fire together. I love dogs just as much as the next person, but if any kind of animal companion is getting in the way of my relationship with another person, especially a romantic relationship, then I need to remove that distraction. And in this case, it just means spending more time with his girlfriend. At the end of the day, some simple communication will go a long way. I'm furious at a photo someone put up of my husband. He insists I'm overreacting. Today is my husband's birthday. He's 35 and I'm 30. A lot of people posted photo tributes to him to celebrate. In one of these posts, one of his colleagues posted 10 photos. Most of them are just him at various outings or business trips. But one of them, the sixth one, is him sitting on a boat, looking down and laughing with a drink in his hand and a woman's legs across his lap. Not just resting on his lap, completely draped over his lap. In the photo, one hand is holding his drink and the other is up in the air. I'm assuming since he was mid-laugh. So I don't know where his hand was resting. One of his other co-workers was tagged in it, so I assumed those were her legs. I saw this picture and immediately called him, asking him where and when it was taken and why her legs were across his lap like that. He immediately told me that I needed to relax and that I was making too big a deal of things. He told me it was taken over the summer. At the time, I had been stuck in a different city because of a co-worker testing positive on a business trip, which is why I had not been invited to a party his other co-worker had. He said he hasn't told me about it because I was already frustrated about being stuck in Montreal. He said his co-worker only had her legs on him for a second. He was laughing at the dog who had just been on his lap jumping off, and right after that happened, he got up. He's making me feel like I'm being so ridiculous for not immediately believing him, which makes me think he might be telling the truth. I don't know. It just makes me feel strange. Honestly, the wife in this story kinda has a point. If you're on a business trip or in some kind of outing with your coworkers, you still have obligations back home. The man in this story absolutely should not have been in a position to allow this woman to get close to him like that. It's a bad look no matter how you look at it, even if it was just for a second. If I was the man in this situation, I would be apologizing to my wife profusely. In fact, if I was the guy in this situation, I would have already told my wife about the situation and told her my response was to get away from her as quickly as possible. The fact that there's a photo of his female coworker draping her legs across his lap at this party is more than enough to raise suspicions from his wife. She's completely justified, in my opinion, of asking questions about what's happening. It's not unusual for a guy to have a friend at work who's also a girl. That's not unusual. But when photos are being taken that would suggest that you're more than friends and your wife sees it, that's when things can get a little sketchy. It's also really problematic that he didn't say something to her sooner. It's a pretty convenient story that she was lounging on him for just a second and that he got up right away afterwards. It just doesn't add up. It's honestly not in the best interest of a husband, someone who is married, to allow another woman to sit there with him like that. That's single guy behavior. That's not married behavior. In fact, the woman in this situation felt comfortable enough to do that knowing that he's married. That's really problematic, and I don't blame the wife in this situation from raising concerns, especially since he blatantly kept this a secret from her. Crazy stuff. My mom gave me a deadline to get married. My boyfriend and I have been together for 3 years and bought a house together last year. My mom gets super agitated over the fact that we aren't married yet, and in a recent phone call, she became pushier than she's ever been. In her opinion, we were supposed to get married last year, right after moving out together. In the end, she basically said, "You're turning 29 soon. Tell your boyfriend you have to get married by the end of this year at least." Now, I'm really not loving the idea of forcing a proposal. My boyfriend and I have already agreed we both want to get married, and he already has said he has some plans in mind about how he wants to propose. I obviously want to to keep the details a secret. I love surprises, so I don't know when exactly he plans to propose. It may not be as soon as this year. No matter how many times I tell my mom that we want to do this our way, she insists that her way is correct. I know she's getting pressure from our conservative Christian relatives, and this makes her uncomfortable, but I don't see her discomfort as a reason to get married this year. My mom and I are really close, and normally she is a lovely person, so I don't want to do anything drastic like cutting off communication, but I'm getting exhausted hearing this kind of talk from her over and over. My main dilemma is whether I should even tell my boyfriend what has been happening. He vaguely knows that my mom's been nagging me, but he doesn't know exactly what she said. I don't want him to feel pressured or cause tension between him and my mom, and I certainly don't want him to rush into proposing just because my mom says so. On the other hand, I don't want him to be blindsided if my mom brings it up to him and starts trying to pressure him directly. Should I tell him what's been going on, or would that make things worse? This is a classic case of parents, friends, and relatives getting in between you and your loved one. I greatly sympathize with the daughter in this story. She clearly found somebody that she loves and trusts enough to buy a house with, and they already have personal plans to get married eventually, and that eventually her boyfriend's gonna propose to her. She doesn't know the details, it's gonna be a surprise. So all in all, it sounds like a solid plan, but her mother doesn't like it, and honestly, I would tell them to stay away. There's no point in trying to please everybody. At the end of the day, it's just between her and her boyfriend. No one else is getting proposed to. It's just between those two, and everybody else is just background noise. Even her mother in this situation. I can understand that the mom feels pressure from her relatives, but if the mom really cared about her daughter, she would take her daughter's side and tell them to get lost. There's no reason for them to stick their noses in her business. All in all, the best thing for this woman to do is to tell her boyfriend exactly what's going on. Let him know so he's not blindsided. There's nothing worse than getting stuck in that kind of situation where the subject of marriage gets brought up and you're cornered and you have to give an answer. And it's bad enough when it comes from your girlfriend's parents. Telling him what's going on and the pressure that she's receiving from her parents and relatives is the best move in this situation. But also, some healthy communication and setting some clear boundaries with her parents as well as her relatives will go a very long way. If you give them an inch by allowing them to dictate when and where you get married, they will take a mile later in your relationship. It's better to set the standard now that your relationship is none of their business. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Be sure to turn on notifications so you never miss a video.